2026, Microsoft signed a 20-year contract to purchase electricity. But they didn't buy wind and they didn't buy solar. They bought the rights to restart a nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island, the site of the most notorious nuclear accident in American history, and they aren't the only ones. The biggest technology companies in the world have quietly become the most aggressive buyers of nuclear power on Earth, and it is entirely because of artificial intelligence. For the last decade, the tech industry's growth was constrained by software. How fast could you write code? How quickly could you train a model? The limiting factor was always intellectual, but something changed. Right now, the four major hyperscalers, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Meta, are projected to spend a combined $725 billion on capital expenditures in a single year. You don't spend that kind of money on software. You spend it on steel, on concrete, on physical infrastructure. The industry has hit a physical wall, not a software wall, a physics wall. Here is why. A traditional server rack in a data center draws between 5 and 15 kilowatts of power. An AI-optimized rack, packed with GPUs running inference workloads, can demand over 100 kilowatts. That is almost 10 times the electricity for the same amount of physical space. Now multiply that across thousands of racks, across dozens of facilities, across every continent. On its own, a single AI query doesn't use much more energy than a standard web search. Google reported in 2025 that a median AI text prompt consumes about a quarter of a watt-hour. But that number is misleading, because the real cost isn't a single prompt. It is the billions of prompts happening every day, plus the complex AI agents that can consume 100 times more energy than a simple chatbot response. And all of it is growing exponentially. In 2026, worldwide data center electricity consumption is projected to reach 565 terawatt-hours. That is a 26% increase from just the year before. Global power demand for data centers is expected to hit approximately 132 gigawatts. And by 2030, that number could more than double to 291 gigawatts. Across the United States, massive data center projects are facing a reality check. Local communities are resisting the sheer volume of water and electricity these facilities consume. In some major hubs, the rapid influx of data centers has been linked to wholesale electricity costs rising by as much as 267%. Local governments are imposing moratoria. Residents are filing lawsuits. The grid is full. Grid interconnection queues, the process of plugging a new facility into the electrical grid, are long and incredibly complex. Delays to connect a new data center to the grid are often exceeding 3 years. In some cases, a decade. If you are Microsoft or Amazon, that timeline is unacceptable. The AI arms race is measured in months, not years. The bottleneck is no longer compute, it is power. Tech companies realize that if they rely on the public utility system to power the next generation of AI, they will lose. Energy vulnerability is economic vulnerability. So instead of waiting for the grid, they decided to build their own power supply. But what kind of power? That is where the story gets interesting. Why not solar? Why not wind? Because data centers cannot rely on the weather. An AI cluster running tens of thousands of GPUs needs baseload power. It needs electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year without a microsecond of interruption. Solar panels don't work at night. Wind turbines don't spin when the air is still. Carbon-free baseload power really only leaves one option: splitting the atom. But nuclear power has a complicated history. In 1979, a partial meltdown at 3 Mile Island became the most serious accident in U.S. commercial nuclear history. No one died. No detectable health effects were recorded, but the damage to public trust was catastrophic. Planned nuclear projects were canceled across the country. Then came Chernobyl in 1986. Then Fukushima in 2011. Both rated at the highest severity level on the international scale. For decades, the word nuclear was synonymous with disaster. So what changed? Two things. First, climate urgency made people reconsider the only large-scale, carbon-free, always-on energy source available. Surveys in 2024 and 2025 showed public support for nuclear power near record highs. Second, the tech industry showed up with something the nuclear sector had never had before: unlimited capital and an urgent deadline. The strategies differ, but the goal is the same. Microsoft went for speed. They signed that 20-year power purchase agreement to restart 3 Mile Island, now rebranded as the Crane Clean Energy Center, targeting operations by 2028. They chose an existing reactor. No new construction, no decade-long permitting process, just flip the switch. Amazon went for scale. They bought a massive data center campus directly adjacent to the Susquehanna nuclear plant in Pennsylvania, plugging their servers directly into the output of an existing reactor. But they are also betting on the future. Amazon invested $500 million into a company called X-Energy, which is developing small modular reactors. Their goal is to add 5 gigawatts of new nuclear capacity to the U.S. grid by 2039. The first project is the Cascade Advanced Energy Facility in Washington state, designed to scale up to 12 reactor modules producing 960 megawatts. X-Energy was so successful that it raised over $1 billion in an IPO in April 2026. Small modular reactors are fundamentally different from the giant plants of the 20th century. Traditional nuclear reactors produce over 1,000 megawatts and take a decade to build on site. SMRs produce 300 megawatts or less. They are factory-fabricated, modular, and can be shipped to a location and assembled. When a tech company builds a new data center, they can drop in a new reactor right alongside it. It is nuclear power designed for the age of cloud computing. Google took a different approach entirely. They partnered with a company called Kairos Power to deploy experimental molten salt reactors, targeting 500 megawatts of capacity by the early 2030s. Meta has issued requests for proposals seeking up to 4 gigawatts of its own. This is a level of private investment the nuclear sector has not seen in decades. This shift is fundamentally rewriting the economics of the utility sector. Annual investments in nuclear energy are holding above $80 billion globally. The focus of the stock market is quietly rotating away from the tech giants themselves and toward the infrastructure enablers. Uranium miners, the grid operators, the hardware suppliers, the companies that pour the concrete and forge the steel. For decades, the nuclear industry was viewed as a relic of the 20th century. Too expensive, too heavily regulated, too controversial, but artificial intelligence changed the math. The tech industry needs unlimited, reliable, carbon-free power. They have the largest balance sheets in the history of capitalism, and they are willing to pay whatever it costs to win the AI race. And this is not a temporary trend. The physical footprint of the digital world is growing faster than anyone predicted. By 2030, data centers could consume more than 1,200 terawatt-hours of electricity globally. That is more than the entire nation of Japan uses in a year. The reactors are not optional. They are the cost of entry. Have you ever thought about where the electricity for your last AI prompt came from? Every question you ask a model, every image you generate, every agent you deploy, it all requires power. Physical, measurable, undeniable power. And as the models get smarter, the reactors get hotter. This has been second order.